It is 1991. A man stands alone at the window of his mansion, looking down into the dark. He is the biggest movie star on the planet.
Mel Gibson.
He has just been named the first ever Sexiest Man Alive by People's Magazine. He is at the absolute peak of his career. But at this moment, he is facing a crisis. He is drunk, empty, and convinced that his life is a lie. The applause means nothing. The awards are just plastic. He has everything a man could dream of. Fame, money, and power are all his. Yet he is hollowed out by a pain that none of it can fix. But in the silence, a realization hits him. He doesn't actually want to die. He just wants the noise in his head to stop. The void calls to him, but something else pulls him back. A tiny, desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, there is a way to fix this. He steps back from the edge. Desperate for a distraction, he wanders into his library. It is a room filled with old books he bought just to fill the shelves. Then he reaches up, grabbing a random title. And that's when it happens. A book he didn't choose falls into his hands. It is a centuries-old vision by a nun detailing the brutal, bloody suffering of Jesus Christ. That book didn't just save his life, it became the blueprint for the most controversial film in history. Directed by the man at the window, Mel Gibson. And this is the story of how he survived his own passion. Mel Gibson was born in New York, but he earned his grit in Australia. In 1968, his father moved the entire family, all 11 children, across the world. He did it to save his sons from the Vietnam draft and to escape what he saw as the moral collapse of America. This upbringing created a paradox. At home, surrounded by 10 siblings, Mel learned to be the clown, using humor just to be heard. But at school, he was the outsider. Being bullied relentlessly, it forced him to develop a thick skin just to survive school. This molded a man who was quick with a joke, but guarded enough to keep the world at a distance. And that intensity is exactly what opened the door to Hollywood. Fresh out of drama school, he was cast in a low-budget film called Mad Max. The director needed someone raw, someone dangerous. Mel Gibson tapped into a rage that no drama school could teach. The movie became a global phenomenon. Suddenly, the doors flew open. Critics praised him in Gallipoli. Audiences fell in love with him in the year of living dangerously. But the explosion happened in 1987 with Lethal Weapon. Playing a cop on the edge of ending his life, Mel tapped into a manic energy that the world had never seen before. He was no longer just an actor. His phenomenal acting established him as a top-tier star. In fact, he became the highest-paid star in the world during the late 1990s and early 2000s, commanding a range of $25 to $30 million per film. But while the world crowned him king, Mel was quietly losing his grip. The wild man he played on screen wasn't an act. He was a high-functioning alcoholic, drinking 5 pints of beer to start the day. He was abusing substances to keep his energy up. He was riding manic highs and crashing into lows. But the hypocrisy cut deeper than the addiction. To the public, he was a hero, but in his own eyes, he felt like a traitor to his faith. This double life became a spiritual prison. The theology of his youth offered no comfort, only rules, judgment, and the terrifying cost of sin. But he missed the one revelation that matters most, the divine exchange. He failed to grasp that at the cross, Jesus had already paid for his sins, past, present, and future. He believed in the judge, but he couldn't find the Savior. So, instead of accepting grace, he carried the condemnation himself. Now, at the peak of the mountain, he realized he was still in chains. And that realization brought him to his knees. Mel Gibson was looking for a way to save his life. Instead, he found a book about how Christ gave his. When he opened the book, The Dolorous Passion of Our Lord Jesus Christ, something shifted. For the first time, he didn't just see the rules of his faith, he saw the cost. That moment of surrender created a debt he felt he could never repay. He believed God had pulled him back from the ledge for a reason. To settle that score, Mel Gibson decided to do the unthinkable. He would risk his career to tell the story that saved him. Hollywood wanted nothing to do with it. Every studio passed. They called it too violent, too religious, and career suicide. Who wants to watch a movie in 2 dead languages with no subtitles? They asked. So, Gibson went to war. He put up $30 million of his own money. He abandoned commercial logic to create an act of worship. And on set, the atmosphere shifted from professional to supernatural. The cast and crew reported strange phenomena throughout the production. Jim Caviezel, the actor playing Jesus, was struck by lightning while hanging on the cross during a storm. Assistant director Jan Michelini was struck twice. Neither was seriously hurt. People on set began to feel a heaviness, a reverence that transcended the work. Agnostics converted. Marriages were healed. Pedro Cerrubi, the actor who played Barabbas, felt a profound gaze from Caviezel during their scene that led him to a deep spiritual awakening. The production became a brutal test of survival. And when The Passion of the Christ exploded into theaters in 2004, it shattered records and shook the culture to its core. Critics hated it. They called it a snuff film, but audiences wept in the aisles. It became the highest-grossing R-rated film of all time. For a moment, Mel Gibson stood as the most powerful independent filmmaker in Hollywood. He was the prodigal son who had returned home. But the old man inside him wasn't dead yet. Sometimes, victory can be more dangerous than defeat. When The Passion became a global phenomenon, Gibson fell into a classic trap of being complacent. Believing the work was done, the director convinced himself that making the movie was the cure. That the act of filming the sacrifice had paid his own debt. Confident that he was fixed, he let his guard down. He abandoned Alcoholics Anonymous, a fellowship of people who come together to solve their drinking problem. Choosing isolation over community, he ceased praying daily. He stopped following the moral inventory that kept his ego in check. And the demons he thought he had buried? They were just waiting for a moment of weakness. When the massive wave of criticism hit, branding him an anti-Semite, a misogynist, and a sadist, his spiritual armor was gone. Defenseless against the media's onslaught, the alcohol crept back in. Within 2 years, he plunged from the spiritual mountaintop to a spiritual valley. If the 1990s were his awakening, 2006 was his collapse. The breaking point arrived in July. His wife of 26 years, Robin, had separated from him just days earlier. Devastated and convinced his life was over, Gibson spiraled into the night. He was arrested for drinking under influence in Malibu, driving 90 miles per hour with an open bottle of tequila. Reports later surfaced that the goal wasn't just to escape, but to provoke the police into shooting him. But instead of a bullet, he got handcuffs. And then the rage spilled over. he unleashed a tirade of anti-Semitic slurs that were recorded and leaked to the world. 4 years later, leaked tapes of domestic arguments confirmed the worst. The language was racist, abusive, and unhinged. The industry that had just crowned him a genius now treated him like a leper. Agencies dropped him. Cameos were cut. He was canceled before the term even existed. To the public, he was a monster. But privately, Gibson viewed this period not as a punishment, but as a pruning. He didn't fight the blacklist. As he later put it, he had to hug the cactus. He believed God was stripping away his ego, forcing him to face the ugliness he had tried to hide behind his charm. The passion didn't fix him, it just bought him time. Now, the actual work had to begin. Mel Gibson wandered in the professional wilderness. He got sober, finally recognizing himself as a broken vessel who requires constant divine intervention to stay upright. In a pivotal moment in 2011, Robert Downey Jr. publicly asked Hollywood to forgive him, famously saying, "He hugged the cactus long enough." Slowly, the door cracked open. In 2016, Gibson returned with Hacksaw Ridge, framing the film around John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. He viewed the protagonist, Desmond Doss, as an emulation of Christ, a man who crawled into the mouth of hell to save 75 lives without firing a shot. The film earned a 10-minute standing ovation at Venice, proving that while his reputation was scarred, his talent was untouched. But the journey didn't end with a comeback. It continued through a fire. In January 2025, while Gibson was in Texas recording a podcast with Joe Rogan, his $14.5 million Malibu home was burned to the ground. Most celebrities would be devastated, but Gibson? He cracked a joke. Referencing George Carlin, he told the press, "I've been relieved from the burden of my stuff because it's all in cinders." He refused to view the fire as a tragedy, seeing it as a release. Standing in the ashes of his own estate, he didn't mourn the loss of his Oscar or his mementos. He told Raymond Arroyo,
I feel like I'm being stripped down and prepared for something else. Now that's maybe very personal, but I feel like the Almighty's preparing me.
It was the final proof that the pruning was complete. He had proven that his foundation was no longer built on Hollywood success or material wealth, but on something the fire couldn't touch. By losing the house he had built, he was finally free to focus on the only story that he felt called to tell. Mel Gibson is currently working on the most ambitious project of his career. The sequel to The Passion is finally underway, titled The Resurrection of the Christ. This is a story built on the foundation of the empty tomb, the ultimate physical proof that Jesus' work is finished and the sin debt is settled forever. It is the historical anchor that makes the rest of the story possible. To tell that story, Gibson is taking a $250 million IMAX leap to explore the 3 days between the crucifixion and the resurrection. Gibson's worldview has only grown sharper with age. He rejects the modern idea that people are generally good. He believes we are all broken, capable of terrible darkness, and in desperate need of grace. The resurrection is presented not as a myth, but as a reality that changed the laws of the universe. The anchor for this belief? Nobody dies for a lie. The willingness of the apostles to face martyrdom is proof that they didn't just hear a story, they truly saw the risen Christ. Mel Gibson is not a safe role model. He remains a complicated, often offensive, and deeply flawed man. But perhaps that is exactly the point. His life serves as a grit-stained reminder that flawed people can go to Jesus exactly as they are. Perfection isn't a prerequisite for the cross. The cross is the cure for the broken.